Well, hello everyone, and thank you for signing up for the SEO for Images online workshop. I want to thank everyone that came out last night too. I had so many technical difficulties before it even started. So thank you so much to everyone that emailed me and messaged me with your support and your understanding. It really meant a lot. And I'm really excited that you're excited to be here. So this is the first online workshop that I've hosted, but I'm hoping to do many more. So I'd really appreciate any feedback that you have for me at the end of this workshop. The reason I decided to do this one was because I was recently asked to present to a group of photographers, and they want to learn how to optimize their photography websites. And I realized that pretty much every article or post that I saw that was based on SEO focused mostly just on the text and not on the images. And so I thought this would be kind of helpful for people who aren't just photographers. Anyone really who owns a website, runs a blog, um, needs this kind of information. So the truth is that your images really should be supporting your text, and they can play a big role in improving your rank if they're properly optimized. So today we're going to look at two ways that you can improve your website images. The first by optimizing their size, and we'll look at a few ways to do that, and also helping Google to understand them better. So if you don't know me, my name is Jessica St. Peter. I'm the owner and partner at Brand Web Design. I've been a graphic designer for about 10 years, and then a few years ago, I got into web design as more and more of my freelance clients were asking me if I could do web design. So I decided to go back to school and learn that, and it's proved to be really useful. When I'm not working there, I'm also a part-time instructor at Niagara College. I've been working there for the last 2 years, so I have one class that is on SEO and user-centered design, and I also teach introductory to web authoring languages, or HTML and CSS. I really love working with small businesses and startups. I love seeing all the different creative ideas that people have, and I've met with a lot of different business owners in my area, and it's really exciting just to see what's going on. I really like working with DIYers too, so people who manage their own websites and helping them get them up and running properly. So we're going to look at again optimizing your website by optimizing your images and creating images that complement your content. So these two things kind of go hand in hand here. What is SEO? SEO stands for search engine optimization. You may hear it referred to as either SEO or search engine optimization, or just getting on Google. A lot of people refer to it that way. SEO is really just the process of optimizing your website to get natural web traffic. So we're not talking about traffic that you get from paid ads that would actually just be, online marketing. We're just talking about the organic, natural, free ways that you can improve your visibility in search results. So there's lots of different ways we can do this. Some of them are on-page factors that we can control. So things like using proper keywords and providing quality content. And then there's some off-page factors that we don't really have much control over. So things like social media votes, backlinks, links coming back to our website, and domain authority. So smaller businesses and businesses that are new, maybe haven't had a website around for very long, it might take a little while to establish your visibility on SEO, but it definitely is possible. So SEO, we've seen a huge shift towards the quality content. So Google's not just looking for how many keywords you can stuff into your content. It's actually looking at how relevant your content is to a user's search query. We're talking about, if someone types in something like a pineapple drink, like in our workbook, what actually shows up? Is your page, your topic, your product actually about pineapple drinks, or is it about something completely different? So Google does take now the user into consideration. Keeping your content updated and relevant is a major key in ranking well. So some ways that we can do that are through blog posts, tweaking your page content a bit, maybe just adjusting keywords, or adding new pages, getting rid of pages that maybe you don't necessarily need, and maybe just adjusting the length of it as well. And those are all text-based, right? So those are things that we can do to adjust the text content. And images often get overlooked when we're discussing SEO and trying to improve our SEO. So that's really what this workshop is about. We really want to have images that support our text, and we want to optimize them properly so that Google knows what they are and so that they actually can increase the user's experience on our website. The important thing we need to remember as we're going through this workshop is that Google doesn't see images like we do. It doesn't see colors, it doesn't see faces or animals or backgrounds or objects. It just sees code. So we have to figure out ways to get around that and help Google understand exactly what our images are about and why they belong on that page. So here's an interesting statistic. People really only read about 20% of the text on a page and are really drawn to images. So here's another reason why it's really important to have our images on our text. If you're going to a website where it's just a giant wall of text, kind of turns you off from reading it because you're just not drawn to it. But as soon as there's some images in there, kind of your eye starts to skim over the page. You maybe get a little more interested in reading it because you're curious to see how those pictures relate to the text. And again, this is where it comes in that our images have to support that text. They break up the page, they make it easier to skim. In fact, after headings, images are the next skimmed item on a page, so they can really help a user understand what our page is about. And images also help convey your point. So if you have some kind of message that you're trying to get across, it can help to do that. And they help people remember the information that they are presented with. So images aren't just photos. So I've been using a lot of photos in these slides, and typically when you go to a website, you'll see a lot of photo-based images, but you can also use graphs, charts, and infographics, or maybe images with text on them, and use images along with your headlines. There's been studies that show that social media posts get much more engagement, so likes and shares and comments, than text-only posts. So Twitter retweets actually increased by 35% for tweets with images, and Facebook posts have a 37% increase engagement when they have images. So that's that can make a big difference in your social media marketing, also in maybe the number of times that your blog posts are read and shared, and even how people interact with your website. When we come up with these images, it's really important that we tie in our brand's message and voice or personality. There are lots of different resources we have. I've posted a whole bunch of them in the workbook. So there's might find more that maybe relate to what you're doing. I try to get a sampling of different free stock photography websites that they don't just look like stock photos, right? They don't have people just sitting boring posed. They're more natural shots, so they're a lot more interesting to look at. If you go to my blog, there's also a blog post, 30 time-saving tools for entrepreneurs, and there's a bunch of other resources and a few stock photo sites there as well. So let's take a look at one of those. Actually, one of my favorite ones is pexels.com. Picture of a cat here. I just want to show you maybe what you're looking for when you're actually looking to download images. Typically, you'll be able to see different categories. If you know what you're looking for, you can do that. In my example, I was looking for a picture of a cat. So I go find him. You can see there's a ton of different photos to pick from. And depending on what you're looking for, it may be more difficult to find something that suits. But again, you're just look for something that fits with your brand's message and, of course, with whatever your topic is about. I'm going to have a fake blog post here about bringing your cats to work. So I like black and white photos. I like kind of rustic photos. Those fit in with my theme quite well too. Different image websites have different ways of downloading their content. So Pexels has options here. If you go under the free download, you'll see there's a drop down that has a few different sizes available. You can also put in a custom size. If you know the size of the image you need, you'll be looking for the next size up. So in my case, I'm looking for an image for my blog My blog post images are 675 pixels wide by 423 tall. So I would not want to stick with a small one because that's just a little bit smaller than the space that I have. And we'll get into the size and spacing of your images later and how pixels work. I would be looking for something like this medium size here because it's just a little bit bigger. I can always downsize it or crop it to fit the space I need. Whereas if I pick a small one, when I blow it up, you're going to start seeing it gets a little bit grainy. Might not be as noticeable with this size, but depending on where you're using your images, it might not be the best option. So you can always download them and then save them to your computer. I've already saved this one here. And it's important too to keep your images organized. You always want to keep an original copy of the photo in case you maybe mess something up and you need to start over again. You don't want to have to go find it again. Or if you want to use the image somewhere else and at a different size, you'll at least have a backup. So keep your original photos just in case. Now you might be using your photos as is, or you might need to add in some text or graphics if you want to share these images, depending on how you're using them, right? So if you're doing a blog post, you might just want the photo. I like overlaying some kind of title on my blog post so that when it's shared, people know what it's about. If you're sharing on social media, you probably also want some kind of text just to say what your picture's about and to get more user engagement there. I'm forgetting which way I'm going here. All right, so when we're creating our on-brand images, we're looking to develop a consistent style. The whole point of branding is to have a consistent voice that goes for your brand's colors, your fonts, the style of images that you put out there. Your logo should be consistent across everything as well. Your message should be consistent. So the personality of your business should be the same across everything that you do, whether it's online and print, even in person. Your communication with people should all be the same. So you're thinking about your audience as well. And that will come into play when you're deciding on your brand in general. So your brand, your audience, your message, those are the main things you need to keep in mind when you're coming up with your images. You can use online programs like Canva. Canva is actually pretty great. They've got some free software available online. You can create an account there. If you want to upgrade to a business account, it's relatively cheap. I'm just going to demonstrate the free version today. What's great about Canva is that they have all of these templates here. So if you're looking for social media, you can see if you hover over, it tells you the size in pixels here. You can look at Facebook covers, Facebook posts. Click on more, you'll see, we've got like Twitter, Pinterest, Facebook apps, Tumblr, Instagram. And then you can get into documents as well. So they have actually quite a nice selection of different sized templates here that you can pick from. You also have the option up in the top right here to use custom dimensions. So because my blog image size is just a little bit different, doesn't really fit into any of these sizes, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And it'll allow me to type in my width and my height here. So the width for my image is 675 pixels. The height again was 425, so click on design. And it's now loaded this blank canvas for me. So if I wanted to, I could choose a different layout. We've got the option to do one image, which I'll be doing, or we could do sort of a collage with different layouts. Well, I'm just sticking with the one. I don't really need to change anything in that case. And you'll see down the side here we have a search. So if you want to search for different shapes or pictures, you can do that. They have a whole library of different images to pick from. We've got elements, so if you're looking for photos, some shapes, illustrations, maybe a chart, you can do that as well. Text is where you'll add your different text elements. So you can just go ahead and just use heading, subheading, or body text, or you can pick from some of their free layouts. And once you get into these two, you can still change what the text looks like and what's written in there, obviously. So it's actually quite extensive. They've got a lot in here. They make it really easy for you to get some great looking graphics. You can also add different background images or patterns and colors. And you can upload your own images. So this is great where you want to add in your logo, maybe any images that you regularly use. You can see I've created some graphics here already. I did some for Pinterest. And I've already uploaded my cat picture here too. So I didn't even resize that cat image. I was just going to go ahead and throw it in here because Canva will do that for me. I'm not sure why it pulls in a little bit bigger, but that's okay. You notice too, if I just grab one of these little corner buttons, it doesn't always resize. If I hold shift, it actually kind of squishes or stretches my picture. I don't want to do that. Sort of the opposite of how most graphic programs work. So I'm just going to make sure that my picture here fills the whole page. I'm going to have some copy on here, so I want to leave a little bit of room. So you can play around with the placement of your picture. Next thing I want to do is add a shape. I'm going to add actually a purple overlay. I usually have some sort of tint on my images. So there's different ways you can achieve some different effects. It might not be as extensive as Photoshop, for example, but you can still get some really neat effects going on. So once I have my shape on there, you'll see that there's this little dialog box. I can click on the circle to pick a color, and there's a couple presets, sorry. I'm going to put in my own though. If you know your hex color, you can just type it right in. Otherwise, you can just use the color wheel. And I want to be able to see through this, so there's a little arrow here. I can play around with the transparency. I'm going to lower that just so I can see the cat through it. Awesome. The next thing I usually do is add some kind of shape. Now, of course, you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. You can do whatever you like. I'm looking for a hexagon. I want one that's filled in. You'll notice some are free and some are paid, but even $1 US for an image is pretty cheap. So if that's what you need to do, it's not a bad option. All right, so this is pretty big. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. What I love about Canva is that it's really user-friendly. It's pretty much all drag and drop. So again, if you're just not that great with graphic design software, if you find maybe Photoshop's a little bit overwhelming, this is a nice option for you. Can't quite tell that straight. That looks good. And I'm going to change the color here. So this color, like that nice bright green, and I'm going to change the transparency here as well. All right, so you can play around with the placement a bit more, and then the text is last. So the one I'm going to use, I think I picked this one before. If you just click on it, or you can click and drag it out. Either way, it'll end up on your artboard. And if you double click or just even click on one of the words, it'll highlight it for you so you can change it. So my blog post is about bringing your cat to work. So this is going to be bring your cat. Oh, I'm going to put cat in the big one. So you can click on each text box to change it. I'm also going to change the case. So whenever you see these little dialog boxes, there's usually a couple more options for you in here. So you can change the font style. So I'm going to change that to a thinner font, and then once that's done, all right, I'm going to click on this arrow, and I can change the alignment. I can make a list. I can choose bold, italic, or uppercase. So I'm looking for uppercase. I'm going to do the same thing with the top. We have a nice selection of fonts to pick from as well. If you upgrade to the business version, you can actually upload your own fonts too. I'm just going to pick ones that are sort of close to the ones that I use. So if you can't find the exact fonts that you have for your brand that you usually use and everything else, just try to find something that's relatively similar. All right, I'm trying to remember what the other font was. So I'll start with a P. And again, you could play around with the colors here. I'm putting this on a white or a green background though, so I want the white kind of stands out a bit more. Might actually make this just a little bit smaller though. You can change your font size really easily. I'll make this one just a little bit bigger. That's not doing much, but okay. So that's just a quick way to make a really simple graphic for your blog or for sharing. If you want to save it, works like most programs where you can just save it up here. You can download a copy of it as well. So there's options for downloading to the web or for high quality. This would be really great if you have transparency. You can download a PDF, standard PDF, or for print, and then you could also do multiple pages. So if you see this little icon down here, it's actually for, actually that one will copy the page, and then one down here will add a new page. So you can actually create multiple page documents with this, which is kind of cool. So we're just downloading the image for web. So hopefully this will optimize our image a little bit better as far as the file size goes. There we go. And we can rename it after. I'm not too worried about the name right now. I'm just going to drag that into my folder. All right. So if you want to add graphics and text, Canva again is really great for just playing around and creating your own graphics. Otherwise, you can just use a photo, and we'll get into next how to actually resize a regular photo or one that you've downloaded from Canva. The reason that we're resizing our images for the web is that they can really slow down a web page, especially if you have really large images or if you have a lot of images such as a gallery or even just a regular blog. You might have a lot of images on the page. Every file that your website has to grab is another call to the server. It basically just slows everything down. If you have a really big image you might have seen or you might remember from, going to websites in the early 2000s and 90s where images would load line by line by line. People just don't have the patience to sit and wait for these images to load. So we need to make sure that our websites are fast, our images are loading quickly and properly, and we're not slowing it down any more than we need to. You can use something like Google Page Speed Insights. If you Google that, you can type in your own website or even just a particular page on your website, and it'll give you a little report of what could be slowing down your website. There's a few things you might not be able to change, especially if you're using something like WordPress or another CMS, or you just have a lot of heavy files and plugins in there that are not stored on your server. You might not be able to change those, but it'll give you suggestions on how you can do that. And the other thing it will suggest to you is usually resizing your images. So it'll tell you how much space and how much size you can reduce and how much that could potentially speed up your website. So that's a really great place to start. So when we're looking at the size, we're talking about actually two different things. One is the actual physical dimensions of our image, so the width and height in pixels. The other is the size as in the the file size itself, so how much storage space it actually takes up. If you've downloaded something from Canva, the file size should be kind of already reasonable. The dimensions should be right. You might have to further optimize the actual file size. But if you're not editing the image, you'll probably need to resize and optimize your files. If you're downloading images from your camera files are generally huge, especially if you're using a professional camera. Even your iPhone will have ridiculously large images. If you're downloading from those stock image sites, some of them are quite big as well. It just depends on the image and even the site that you go to. So our goal is to reduce that file size without sacrificing any quality. We don't want that graininess or the pixelated look on our pictures. So we're going to look at using the appropriate sizes for the space that we have. I mentioned a couple sizes I was using for my blog. I happen to know the size of the blog images on my site. If you don't know that, you can always ask your web developer. Or if you're using a theme in WordPress, it might tell you, the documentation might tell you what size that you need. So sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Oh, one other thing to keep in mind too is that if your website is going to be viewed on mobile devices, which it should be, by the way, you need to have images that will rank, that will not slow that down as well. Mobile devices typically have a harder time loading images, so we want to make sure that our speed all around is good. So if you know the size of your images, and you know that you maybe have a desktop version, a tablet version, and a mobile version, there's 3 different sizes. If you're not sure which one to use, err on the side of the larger one, only because you want it to not be displayed too small on your desktop or get blown up and pixelated. So we're looking at pixels. In the real world, so our physical world, we measure things in imperial units, so inches and feet, or metric units like centimeters, millimeters, and meters. Digital devices, though, so our monitors, our TVs, our phones, they use a measurement unit called pixels. And the quality of an image is determined by the number of pixels in each inch. Typically, we refer to pixels per inch. If you were to compare a photo or something you would print, typically we're looking at 300 dots per inch. That's much higher than the quality you get on any kind of screen or a website. Typically, websites have images around 72 dots per inch or 72 pixels per inch. So if you've ever tried to print a picture off a website, it's probably why it didn't look too great when you printed it out. Basically what it's doing is trying to stretch those pixels over larger size. Everything kind of gets distorted and doesn't look quite as nice. We don't have to worry about that so much on websites though. Just to give you an idea of what exactly that does, there's a website called pixelizer.com, and gone ahead and entered some numbers here. So let's say we have a photo that's 6 inches by 4 inches, a typical photo size for print anyway. And we're looking at 300 dpi, which is a pretty good quality for print. That image would actually be 1,800 pixels wide by 1,200 pixels high. And it would end up being this big. This is definitely not 4 inches by 6 inches. That quality gets stretched out, and that image would actually be much larger on our screen. If we go down to 75 dpi, same size image, this is what that same picture would look like on your computer at the different resolution. So we've got a 300 dpi at 75 dpi, both the same picture, both the same size in inches, but you can see the drastic difference here in the number of pixels there. Once you have your images too, you'll probably need to crop them just to fit. If you don't have Photoshop and Canva doesn't really crop images for you, just creates a different size artboard, you can use a program like picresize.com or kraken.io. They both work a little bit differently. So with PicResize, you can upload your pictures. I'm just going to go ahead and find my files here. So I had my image, which actually isn't that large. If you look at the size of this, it's 1,280 pixels wide by 714 pixels tall. It's only 125 kilobytes, so even as is, this is actually a really good low file size for that size picture. This one, okay, this one's a little bit bigger, 551 kilobytes. I think we could bring that down a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and upload that. Sometimes it takes a little while to upload all these pictures. These two different pages work a little bit differently, so I'll show you the difference between them. So with PicResize, I can crop my image. So if I just go on the image and click and drag, I end up with this little marquee box that I can change the dimensions of. Right, so I could do that, and then I could crop it just to that selection if I wanted to. Then I have options to actually resize it. So I have a drop down here where I can go from absolutely no change to 75% smaller, or I can tell it to fit a specific screen size. So this would be good if you had maybe a background image for your website, or even for just your computer in general, or you could add a custom size in there as well. And on the right, it tells me my original size, my crop size, and the estimated final size if I were to make this 50% smaller. You could also make it 25% smaller. I could go with the custom size, and again, I know that I would need it to be 675 pixels wide. And without putting in a height, because it'll just automatically resize this proportionately, I can see that's 448 pixels tall, so it's a little bit taller than what I need. I'm not going to worry too much about that right now, though. I'm just trying to show this site. We've got different special effects if you want to add grayscale effects or raise. It doesn't actually show you on here. It will when you actually save it. I'm going to stick with none. And then we can see we have different options here for the file format. We've got JPEG, GIF, PNG, and bitmap. Typically for photos, JPEG is the best option. It supports a much wider range of colors. It is best for things that have or images that contain, photo or photorealistic graphics and gradients. You can also adjust the quality here. So when we're saving JPEG, it actually will lose some data depending on the quality that we set. We have three options here: good, better, and best. You can also say the maximum number of kilobytes if you knew that. Some websites tell you exactly the file size that you need to upload. GIFs are, you usually see these in animated images, right? That they seem to be making a comeback actually right now. If you notice when you look at those GIFs though, they're not very smooth looking, right? They have a limited number of colors. They only support up to 256 colors. So depending on the image that you're using, it won't work very well. So photos aren't a great idea for this, but if you have some kind of line art or solid color, like a logo, for example, this could work well. PNG works a little better though for that kind of image. So if you have any kind of transparency, PNG is the way to go. GIF also supports transparency, but your images will still end up kind of jagged on the edges. It might even have some kind of white outline on them. It doesn't look as clean. So if you're looking for really clean, crisp, transparent images, if you have maybe your logo cut out somewhere, Ping is a good idea for that. Because I'm using a photo, I'm going to stick with JPEG. I can see the different sizes here. I'm going to go ahead and try it on better. All right, so we've gone down to 60 kilobytes for that image, which is really good. I have different options here. I can go and view it. All right, still looks good. Doesn't look like it lost any quality at all, probably because I chose best. I can also save it to my computer. So I have those options there. All right, so that's pick resize. Kraken has a couple different options. We're looking at this free web interface here. So if you click on this, you'll see we'll be able to optimize image sizes. We don't really have the options though for resizing or cropping. So this is more if you have an image already kind of at the physical size that you need, so the actual pixel dimensions, but you need to trim down the file size of it. So our goal again is to keep the file size as low as possible without sacrificing that quality. I can click and drag. Let's see what we get here. I'm going to drag my image back on here. You can see it shows up in the bottom. If you have a small screen, I've used this on a small screen before, it's not really apparent that anything's happened, so just make sure you scroll down, you'll see it there. And because I didn't change any of these options, it just went ahead and resized it for me automatically. So at lossy, if you click on here, I'll give you a little definition here. So your lossy is when you're just sacrificing a small amount of image quality. So this is something you shouldn't typically notice. You can save a lot of file weight though this way. Lossless is when you really don't want to lose anything. So if you have text on your image, for example, you'll see a big difference here if you use a lossless format as opposed to a lossy format. Okay, so lossy means it does lose some information. Lossless means it doesn't. But this program is basically automatically choosing that amount for us when we pick lossy or lossless or expert. Expert, you have a little more control. You can choose the quality of your JPEG or your PNG. I wouldn't recommend going below 60 for most JPEGs. You can kind of play around and download different samples and see what works best. But typically, if you go any further than 60, so below 60, you're going to start seeing that degradation in the quality of your pictures. You'll see that pixelation, or maybe the colors just don't quite blend together as nicely. Lossy tends to be our best option here. You can see we start at 538 kilobytes. It went down to 320, a savings of 40%. So that's pretty good. If I do this again with the lossless format, I'll try it again at with the lossy expert settings here, just so we can see the difference. All right, so our lossless format didn't really save us too much. We only saved 2%, but going down to the expert mode and choosing 60 in our image quality, we've actually saved almost 64%. So let's take a look at what that, and that still looks pretty clear. Yeah, I wouldn't go really below that, but that's actually a nice clear image still. And it saved quite a bit of file space. All right, so now we know how to create images, how to find images, and we know how to resize images for the web. The next thing we're looking at is how we can optimize them as far as our content goes. So as I was saying before, Google doesn't see images the same way that we do. It actually needs textual clues to understand what your image is about. It doesn't see, colors and shapes and faces the same way that we do. Google's just a robot. Um, what Google can do, though, is it can read text. So search engines look for keywords in your text, including your file names, and something called alt tags, which I'll explain a little bit later. So it's really important to name your images properly using some keywords and to put those keywords in your alt tags as well. Keywords are words or phrases that describe your product or your service, your business, or the topic of your page. Um, Typically, it's best to stay away from any kind of technical jargon. Use words and phrases that your audience would use. So, if you were a customer or a client of yours, what would you type into Google to find your business? Another thing to keep in mind when you're coming up with your file names is that it's a little different than naming files for your computer. You should take out any spaces between words and use dashes there instead. It's just a little friendlier way for Google to read those file names. Alt tags are an attribute that websites assign to images. The alt tag is there for a couple of reasons actually. It's required for accessibility. It does provide more information about the image. Typically, you can have up to 16 words or 150 characters. And it's displayed to the user if for some reason your image doesn't load. So if you've ever gone to a website where there's just a big empty spot and a little bit of text, that's what you were seeing. You were seeing the alt text, the alt tag, alt attribute. We kind of throw a few different terms around here. So it is actually required by Google to have alt tags for all of your images except for anything that's used for decorative purposes. So if you just have some kind of decorative element on your page, it doesn't need an alt text. Borders, or I wouldn't say buttons. Buttons, you definitely should have alt text just because, again, if the button didn't show up and it had text on it, your user should know what the button does and what it's for. Anything that has instructions should have an alt tag. Anything that's descriptive and relates to your content should have an alt tag. Now, how do you come up with these keywords? Obviously, they're really important. If you want people to find your product and your service online, they need to be able to use the right words to find you, or rather, you need to use the right words to find your audience or get in front of them. There's a couple ways you can do it. The first place you should start is just brainstorming a list of words to describe your product or your service or even your topic. So come up with maybe one main keyword phrase and then a few other supporting and relevant phrases. So things like different ways to word that keyword or phrase, or maybe just different words and phrases that are related to that specific keyword. You can also use Google to perform a search for your product or service. So type in your product or service in Google and see what kind of search results come up. You can check out those websites, maybe see if there's other words that you hadn't thought of. You can also check out your competition this way. So go on their websites and see what kind of keywords they're using to get in front of people. If you have Google Analytics set up, which you should, you can always go into your dashboard there and check out what words that people are using to actually find you. There might be words in there that you hadn't thought of, or you weren't sure that you were targeting so well. The key thing to finding keywords, though, is to find something that's sort of niche. So not just one word. We have that pineapple drink example. So the primary keyword shouldn't be something just like drink. That's very generic. You could bring up anything from coffee to tequila to punches, right? Or fruit juice or water. You get the idea. You want to find something that's really specific to what you're offering. So the longer it is, I mean, you shouldn't go too long, but a couple of words to describe that item is better than just one word. Once you have your keywords, we're going to start using them in your content. So you probably already have them on the page that you're going to be having these images, but you're going to use them in your file name as well. So your file name should be descriptive. They don't need to be very long. And again, you're using dashes instead of spaces in your file names. Your alt attribute can be a little bit longer. So this is where we're telling Google a little bit more about what this image is about. They can be, again, 16 words or 150 characters approximately. And they're usually written like a complete sentence, or at least it's a little better to write like a complete sentence. So if you had an image of that pineapple drink, I think I have an example in there of, pineapple drink served in a glass jar. So even if you couldn't see the picture, you would at least have an idea of what it is. And then Google can also read that alt text and see how it relates to the recipe on that page. You don't want to be scammy. You don't want to be scammy either. You don't want to be spammy or overuse your keywords. So be sure not to use them too much. That's why we're also kind of looking at some related keywords when we're coming up with our list. And once you've renamed your image, you're ready to upload it on your site. So I'm going to find my image here so I can show you. It's really important when you're saving your images not to change the name of them. All right, so this black and white man, person, hands. It's sort of descriptive, I guess. It's black and white. There's a man. He's got a computer. He's a person. He has hands. Actually, computer's not even in that name, so I might change that a bit. When you're changing your file names, make sure not to remove the extension, or else it might not load properly. And you can see the example of here why we have these little dashes in here. Canva, unfortunately, doesn't throw those in, so you would have to change that. So I might change this to I could change it to Bring Your Cat to Work Day, because that's the name of the title and it's actually a text on there. But I could also have something like white cat grooming. That should be good. White cat grooming. So it's a little more descriptive of that picture, right? I think the original was night animal cats clean. All right, so we've looked at how you can use images that complement your topic and brand. We've learned how to resize our images to improve the page load speed. And we've learned how to use keywords that Google can understand your images with. So I've put a lot of these different points in the workbook, so you can refer back to it, use it as a checklist as you add new images to your website. The last page on there is all about your keywords, so you can print that off as many times as you want and just use it even throughout your pages, even not even just for your images, but for your actual page content as well. You can use it to keep track of what keywords that you're using on there. And if you want even more tips on SEO and website maintenance, we do have a newsletter where we provide tips and updates, maybe about once a month or so. So if you want to join that, you can head over to our website. It's down in the footer there. I want to thank you all for showing up again, and thank you for your patience yesterday. I hope you were able to get some useful information on how to improve your website visibility and your search engine rankings by optimizing your images. If you found this workshop helpful, please feel free to share it with someone else. Again, join our newsletter so you can get more tips. And just as a special promotion, we have a couple different things to offer today that go along with our images. We've really found that using images really increases a user's willingness to read an article or a post. In fact, there's studies that show that users user engagement increases by 80% if you have images in your social media posts. And to add to that, if you have images that are on brand, they make you look a lot more professional. They make your business more memorable, and they have a big impact across all of your social media platforms. So it really should be considered part of your social media marketing strategy. I've had a lot of clients lately who've been asking about our own branded social media sharing images. You might have seen them on our Facebook or Twitter accounts or Instagram. And they've asked how they can create them for themselves or how they can get those kind of images. We touched a little bit on it today about creating images, but it really is a topic that I could spend a lot more time on because it is really in depth. So because of that, we're actually going to have another upcoming workshop that is solely geared towards creating on-brand social sharing graphics. It'll be coming out probably mid to late June. I haven't quite nailed down the date yet, but I will be sending out the details and opening registration for that in the next couple of days. So just like today's workshop is going to be another free online workshop, I'm going to get those technical details ironed out for next time so we can actually communicate on there. You can ask me questions. And we'll get a lot more into creating those branded images. We'll look at deciding on colors and fonts if you haven't already, and maybe coming up with a style, and then how to implement that in creating your different graphics, and even just picking those pictures. So if you're a DIYer, this is definitely something you don't want to miss. If you're not a DIYer, we have something for you too. I've had a lot of clients tell me that they just aren't creative, or they feel like they aren't creative. They don't have the time, they just don't want to create their own graphics, but they know how important it is to use these images in their posts, and they know what it can do for them. They want to stand out. So we've heard you too, and we've come up with a new offering, actually, that we're pretty excited about. We now have a social media images package that we've just started to offer. And what it does is it gives you 10 customized on-brand sharing images that you can use on your social media accounts without the headache and the hassle of messing around in graphic design software. So if that's really just not your thing, I'll do it for you. So you can use them to share tips and motivation. You can promote a product or service. You can let your audience know what's going on with your business. Maybe you're moving, or you have new employees, or you just want to give a shout out to someone else. And you can reuse them as well. So you might have seen things like a Motivation Monday or Tweet Tuesday or other graphics like that that engage people to comment and like and share your posts. So you can use them that way as well. So don't let your social marketing take a break this summer. Our package is available for only $249. So you get 10 done for you custom on brand sharing images. And if you order by June 10th, I'm actually going to extend this a couple of days because of last night's difficulty. So if you order by June 12th, I'll also create 2 more pictures for you. So you're going to get 12 pictures customized to your brand that you can share on your social media platforms for $249. 12 images is enough for you to share 1 image a week until the end of August. So that's, your entire summer social media marketing, or at least a good chunk of it. If you want to learn more about this package and how it can impact your business, I've included a link in the email. So it'll be the brandwebdesign.ca/social-media-images-package. I'll just double check on that, but I'll send you out the link for that as well. So after June 12th, you'll just go back down to the 10 images. So if you want those extra 2, definitely order before then. You can order right through our website, make the payment, and then there'll be some questions for you to fill out so I can develop something that's perfect for you. So thank you again for coming. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email me at jess@brandwebdesign.ca, and also connect with us on our website, brandwebdesign.ca. Again, you can join our newsletter there. We're on Facebook, Brand Web Design Niagara, and